Hello everybody, I'm John, this is JP Strategic Investments, and today we're going to talk about the Patriot One Technology shareholder letter that we just got today. And it's going to be a pretty quick video. There's a lot of things in here that we've already heard before, but there are a few different points throughout the letter that I do want to touch on. So let's jump right into it here. The first thing, or what Peter starts off the letter with, is kind of giving a little bit of a background, a little bit of a recap, some things that have changed, and then we get into some of the highlights in the quarter here. And this is where we get to the first thing that I want to touch on. And it says one of the highlights was the delivery of the next iteration of our multi-sensor gateway solution and deploying this into stadiums and other venues to protect the entire facility. Now, what I'm really focusing on there is the entire facility, because as of yet, we've heard about this long, drawn-out sales process where the stadiums and arenas and things like that are going to want to start with, maybe 2 lanes, maybe it's an employee or player's entrance. Then once that works out, maybe move a couple into regular customers coming in, and then really move into the entire facility, protecting the entire stadium or the entire arena with the MSG platform. As of yet, I have not heard about any facilities being entirely protected by the MSG platform. That seems to be what this is implying. I don't know if that's meaning not the stadiums, but the other venues that are referred to there. Just an interesting point that I thought I would touch on there. The next thing that I want to touch on here is the note in the section about the third-party evaluations. We talked about this, or I talked about this in a previous video, but they make a point here, and it says, an important note, the tests and verifications that we undertook were based on league-defined requirements, not our own defined standards. And the more interesting thing is they go on further to say this is a critical differentiator for us, as we are the only company willing to use league requirements as the basis for our testing. Now, I'm not 100% sure, but I want to say that this is in reference to the NCS4 testing. And the reason is the other testing that they did to meet those NIJ and FAA standards, those were tests specifically derived to meet those standards, and they were, facilitated by SVS. You guys can check out the last video that I did on that. I'll link that in the info cards above. But with the NCS4 testing, traditionally the NCS4 testing, the way that it's done is the company will put forward their own standards that they are holding their products to, and NCS4 will take those standards, test out the products, and basically do a report on how well the product meets the company's standard. So that leads me to believe that basically, instead of coming up with their own standards that may highlight their best attributes and diminish any of their weaknesses, they just took the league standards, probably took the most stringent league standards, and I'll tell you why in a second, and put their product to the test against those standards. And the reason I say the most stringent of the leagues is if we look even further in the report here, we get to this section here where it says this, and that is, the excitement with our target customers is such that the recent NCS4 testing announced by the NCS4 included participants and observers from all of the pro leagues and from global live entertainment organizers who requested to participate. So that tells me if I have all of these leagues coming to watch my demonstration, right, I am going to want to demonstrate that my product meets your standards, right? I'm going to want to show you, hey, you want to use my product because my product does exactly what you want it to do and more. And so they're not just going to pick the league with the loosest standards, because then all of the other leagues aren't going to care, right? And that's why I think what Peter is referring to there is just using the league's requirements instead of their own. Now, I don't quite know, and maybe he has contacts and different things. I don't quite know how he knows that competitors like Evolve and Other companies didn't do the exact same thing. I don't quite know how he knows that they're the only company to do this. But regardless, the fact that they are doing it and the fact that they seem confident that the report will show that they meet those standards is definitely a good thing for us as investors. And it makes me even more excited to actually take a look at that report when it comes out. The next thing that I want to touch on here, and let me actually just make this a little bigger for you guys. There we go. And that is right here in sales. And this particular section right here. And that says, in the past 6 months, we have secured multiple smaller contracts and are negotiating or in negotiation for a number of larger contracts. And some of the smaller contracts start with a single location booking with the potential to add dozens of further locations. So 2 things here. One, Peter is saying that the contracts that they've received so far in the last 2 quarters are what they consider small contracts. So that's definitely a good thing for us because it means that future contracts, especially the ones that they say they're in negotiations with, are going to be even larger than this, right? That is definitely a good thing. The other thing to note here is what we've kind of known before, but I think it's worth reminding, is that some of the contracts, the smaller contracts that they get, are either with one location, as Peter mentions here, with the potential to add 2 further locations as long as it works in the current location for the customer, but also it could be those stadiums where maybe they're starting out with 2 lanes and moving forward from there. So we do need to keep in mind, maybe they've booked, well, right now they have a backlog of about 3 million, right? Well, if half of those, or a portion of those, let's say, are smaller contracts with the potential for future additions, then we really need to consider what is the larger potential value of the contracts that they've actually gained. Because you could look at what they have now, and a lot of people do, and say, well, it's really not that much. They need to get a lot more. But with a lot of the contracts that they currently have, those are doors into potentially much larger contracts as long as the current ones work out and it's what the customer wants. So I think that's something worth noting. I think for a lot of investors, though, myself included, probably going to want to wait to see that revenue actually show up on the income statement before I make any larger moves with the stock. But definitely a good thing to keep in mind and something that I wanted to touch on here. So again, with this newsletter, a lot of things that we've heard before, but it seems like the main thing is those certifications, and I am really excited to see what comes out with that NCS4 report. Can't wait to get my hands on that, and I will definitely do a deep dive into that when we get that. And that's kind of what we're waiting on now. So anyway, if you have any questions, think I missed anything, let me know in the comments below. Other than that, I will see you guys next time, and have a great day.